And Peter Iwanowicz, thanks very much for your time tonight.
Yeah, it's my pleasure to be here, Liz.
So it's sort of a strange and unfortunate circumstance that brings you here, actually. Yesterday, not unfortunate necessarily for you being elevated to this position.
My family might disagree.
Right. You have two jobs now. You are the Deputy Secretary, is that correct, for Environment? And then subsequently Acting Commissioner because of the firing of Pete Granis at DEC.
Yep, I've been in the Governor's office for 18 months. In March of this year, the Governor appointed me as his Deputy Secretary for Environment, taking over for the past Executive or Deputy Commissioner Judith Enck. So in March, I became that position. The Governor asked me yesterday to do both, continue on as Deputy Commissioner for the environment, as well as doing the DEC job as well.
Well, that seems like a lot of work.
It is, but I mean we're moving rapidly. Next week we'll have a governor-elect, and we'll move rapidly in the transition time period. We have some key initiatives we want to continue to move forward with at DEC, and also a lot of transition work that we have going on during the governor's office as well. So it is a lot of work, but the time is exciting. We're getting ready for a transition to a new administration, and I'm looking forward to the challenge.
So the circumstances of this situation were that a former Assemblyman, Pete Granis, who was appointed to this position by Eliot Spitzer, actually, was fired. The reason given from the administration was insubordination and also poor performance. And the leaking of a memo that detailed his concerns about the cutting of staff at the DEC. Now that you are heading the agency, what can you tell us in terms of concerns about the ability of the agency to do its job at a time when it's facing 150 layoffs?
Yeah, I mean, this has been a trying year, especially for all agencies in state government, and certainly in the environmental area. It's been very, very trying. As you remember, we did have to put on the table the possibility of closing parks and historic sites for the first time ever. We've faced a lot of fiscal challenges, but even when we face those challenges, we've done a lot of great things in terms of environmental protection and public health protection. We did keep the parks open in agreement with the legislature. We signed into law a new electronic waste recycling program. We signed a bill into law that's been around for my days at the Lung Association time period, actually, that would cut the pollution coming from home heating oil. And in a couple weeks' time, we're going to roll out, we think will be the nation-leading sort of climate action plan. So a lot of good work continues to go forward. And all the while, I mean, in DEC and other agencies have had to deal with not only belt tightening for all their costs, but also personnel reductions during that time period. So certainly this isn't a great time to continue going forward in terms of staff reductions, but we are facing a significant budget gap next year of $9 billion, and we're going to continue to have to try to find ways to reduce costs while trying to continue doing the environmental protection and public health things that we've achieved this year and more of them next year.
One of the things that Pete Granis said in that memo was that the meat had been snipped free of the bones and some of the bones had disappeared. He said some of the agency's programs are, quote, hanging by a thread. Do you agree with his assessment?
Those are Pete's sort of words, and that's sort of his perspective on things. I mean, I think we've been able to do a lot of things in the face of deep budget cuts and a reduction in staff. I mean, the staff reduction started well over a year ago at DEC and other agencies. But as I mentioned, we accomplished a lot of those things I mentioned since May of this year. So we're continuing to try to do as much as we can in terms of core programmatic reductions, recognizing that we have fewer dollars that goes into the sort of the non-personal service, like things like gasoline and other things to spend money on, and fewer people doing them. It's going to be a challenge, but the problem really is that we're facing deep fiscal crises, especially for next year, and we're going to have to figure out a way to manage through those crises in a way that protects the environment, continues to protect public health as a result.
Do you know if there's going to be an investigation internally as to where that memo got leaked and how, or is this matter dead in terms of the administration's eyes?
I have no knowledge of anything going to be investigated any further. I think the governor, in appointing me an acting commissioner yesterday, is trying to move forward. We have a lot of work that we want to still accomplish in between now and the end of the Patterson administration this December to continue along. Like I mentioned, we have a climate action plan coming out in a couple of weeks. There's several other key important regulations and guidances we want to get done. So there's a lot of work that still needs to get going here in New York, and he's asked me to really pick up the ball and continue moving it down the field.
There's a lot of concern, particularly for our viewers, in terms of the hydrofracking situation. We're waiting for a report to come out. And what is going to be the timeline in terms of this change of leadership? Also, we should mention, I mean, you're going to be there until the end of December, and then we have no idea where anyone is going to be because a new governor will come in. Right. Do you have any feeling about how much this got set back in terms of the report that we expect on hydrofracking because of the change of leadership at the top of the agency?
Yeah, I've actually asked for some staff briefings on a range of key important issues, and I'll be getting those briefings in the next week or so. And included in that is where the status of the generic environmental impact statement is for hydrofracking. The governor has said repeatedly for over 10 months now that he does not want to see hydrofracking go forward in New York State unless the environment can be protected. So that's a key part of what I'm going to be doing when I get down there, is making sure that as we move towards the final EIS for hydrofracking, that it's done with to ensure that we can protect the environment. If we can't, I don't believe it'll be approved by the governor. So it's a key challenge, but it's been out there for many months.
I've actually never really understood this. The EPA is also going forward with a sort of wider study into hydrofracking. Where's the confluence of the state versus the feds in terms of what the decision will be in the Marcellus Shale?
Well, what the feds are looking at through an Environmental Protection Agency, they're going to be looking at the issue of groundwater protection. So they are now in the process of scoping out a 2-year-long study to assess this type of technology used for extracting natural gas and what that might mean for groundwater protection and groundwater resources. So that's sort of the scope of where the EPA is. What the state is doing, and that's where permitting happens, is at the state level. The state has an all-encompassing look at drilling overall, air quality impacts, land disturbance impacts, a whole panoply of issues that goes into the look at it. We're putting together an environmental impact statement that people can use on a generic basis. So our review is much more thorough than what the EPA is going to be looking at, and much more broad and encompassing.
So regardless of what the federal government decides to do, it's the state that has the ultimate control in terms of making a decision about whether permits should be issued?
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah, the state issues the permits here. And I know there's been a lot of consternation with local governments not having a big role, but the energy laws of the state through the environmental conservation law are pretty clear that the state has the permitting function here. But so we're trying to do our job to be extremely careful and sensitive to the needs of local government, and certainly answering the governor's call to ensure that before drilling, we have to be clear that the environment's going to be protected. We're going to have enough personnel on the ground to sort of monitor the situation so we don't run into what happened in the Gulf of Mexico with that huge spill where clearly the environmental cops weren't on the beat.
But isn't that the key here? I mean, the whole getting back sort of to the start of this discussion was as to whether or not there are enough people, enough bodies at the DEC to fulfill the mission of the DEC, including now this added situation with hydrofracking. I mean, if you don't have sufficient people in the agency, then you can't, in fact, police whether the groundwater is being tainted or people are being in some way jeopardized because of that.
Yeah, I mean, we booked workforce savings back when the governor released the executive budget in January. And in that executive budget, we did contemplate actually adding positions to DEC. And even though we were going to be losing some positions along the way last year, we did want to book additional positions. The legislature flat out rejected our ask for additional staff to oversee not only the final generic environmental impact statement, but also issuing of the permits, and then ultimately sort of building that out. We were going to fund those positions through an extraction tax, and we're looking at permit fees too. And I think the next administration will have to take a hard look at how they want to structure that part of DEC to ensure that the environment will be protected, public health will be safeguarded if they decide to go forward with hydrofracking.
Is this something, I know that at this point you're sort of trying to really just keep the agency going, improve morale because it's been a difficult time there, and now you have these two hats to wear. Are you interested in maintaining some kind of position in the next administration or as commissioner of DEC?
I'll tell you this, I have loved my time in public service. I came inside under the Governor Spitzer and his administration, and I've enjoyed really working with Governor Patterson to try to advance things down the field. I've enjoyed, learning a lot about how government works and functions, and deals with legislative stuff as well as other things. One thing that just really is amazing to me is how talented the workforce is, not only at the agency levels, all the agencies I've gotten to work with besides DEC is fantastic. So, I would love to, continue to serve in any kind of role for the people of the state, but that's obviously up for someone else to decide. we all learn painfully, time and time again, that we serve at the pleasure of a governor in these appointed positions, and I accept that. I accepted it going in, and I know it today, and I'll know it tomorrow.
Yeah, it's going to be actually, having lived through a couple of these transitions now, it is certainly difficult, and coming on top of that is we're seeing the governor say 898 layoffs before the end of the year, plus perhaps the next governor, assuming that it may be Andrew Cuomo according to the polls, has said everything is on the table, so it could be fairly bloody going forward, actually.
Transitions can be messy, that's for sure.
Yeah. In the meantime, I want to thank you very much for coming in, and I really appreciate your time. Thanks,
yeah,
Peter.
It was my pleasure. Thanks.